here.
With Laura.
So you're going to be surprised because the clip that is going to follow is a clip that I set up on my own explaining to you the reasons why I wanted to do an M. Night Shyamalan retrospective. So... Anyway, I did not expect this, but I came back to Laura's with my M. Night Shyamalan films and I thought, let's just watch it together. Be good for Articulate Warbling. Do a retrospective with someone who has seen all of these films and has experienced M. Night Shyamalan over the years to someone who is an M. Night Shyamalan novice. And so far, so good. So, to begin, is M. Night Shyamalan's third directorial effort. But it's basically going to be treated as his directorial debut because this is the film that really imprinted him on a mainstream audience's consciousness. And this is what really kick-started a pretty up and down all-around career. So today, on Articulate Warbling, me, Zach,
me, Laura,
are going to be doing a review for The Sixth Sense. So, what is The Sixth Sense about, Laura?
Young Cole Sear is haunted by a dark secret. He is visited by ghosts. Cole is frightened by visitations from those with unresolved problems who appear from the shadows. He is too afraid to tell anyone about his anguish, except child psychologist Dr. Malcolm Crowe. As Dr. Crowe tries to uncover the truth about Cole's supernatural abilities, the consequences for client and therapist are a jolt that awakens them both to something unexplainable.
Baby, what are you shaking? Cole, what's wrong?
Did you ever talk to your mom about how things are?
I don't tell her things.
Why not?
Because she doesn't look at me like everybody else, and I don't want her to. I don't want her to know.
Know what?
I see dead people walking around like regular people.
I don't see anything. Are you sure they're there?
Sometimes you feel it inside, like you're falling down real fast. You ever feel the prickly things on the back of your neck?
Yes.
That's them. They get mad. It gets cold.
How often do you see them?
All the time. They're everywhere. They want me to do things for them.
I think that they know that you're one of these very rare people who can see them. So you need to help them.
What if they don't want to help?
I don't think that's the way it works.
How do you know for sure?
Is anyone there?
Look out! Please make them leave.
I'm working on it.
So, pre-warning, this is a retrospective and there's going to be deep dives, deep dissections of the plot of all
Spoiler alert!
of all M. Night Shyamalan films. So, you've been warned, we'll warn you again with a flashy spoiler alert. Right, you okay? So, let's get into The Sixth Sense. Would you like to start?
I don't really know what to say. My brain's just gone like, bye!
So The Sixth Sense came out in 1999 starring Bruce Willis and was one of Haley Joel Osment's first on-screen appearances. And there were many few thereafter. He was the noughties, late 90s version of Macaulay Culkin, or except Macaulay Culkin was more bent towards comedic size, and Haley Joel Osment played the big-eyed, haunted, damaged child. Haley Joel Osment was more notorious for his bug-eyed, deeply disturbing, deeply heartbreaking performances where you look at him and you just want to hug him and nurture him. He had a very long, prosperous career, and then he stopped making films. He was a child actor of whom possessed the abilities of a Shakespearean stage actor. The levels of emotion, poise. This young boy holds himself as if he has been in movies for much longer than he actually had been. He really carries this mature presence of dignity, familiarity. A lot that disturbed and haunted and abused children do carry, whilst also on the flip side are representational of the young and frail little creatures that they are. Haley Joel Osment is nothing short of sensational. Bruce Willis himself is likeable, and Bruce Willis isn't a likeable person in real life, nor as an actor in a lot of his roles. He's a bit dickheadish and hot-headed and macho and machismo, and this is one of the more serious roles that Bruce Willis portrayed, and it also kick-started a whole new era for him as an actor. The Sixth Sense for me is the start of something brilliant, and that's M. Night Shyamalan's career. Someone of whom, throughout his career, became the man of mystery, the mythology around him, the mythology of his stories. And a lot of his stories are centrally held up upon belief systems, not just faith, but of each other, of yourself, and of the things in and around you. He is the director who kind of pigeonholed himself as, I have to one-up each twist ending with my preceding film career. And those people say that he has been pigeonholed in that and kind of backed himself in a corner. I don't view it like that. I view it as a natural inclination, a natural creative fervour that he was like, okay, how can I twist the notion of storytelling? And this is the thing with M. Night Shyamalan, it's all about story. It's about the power of storytelling and how a well-told story, a compelling, disturbing, haunting, emotional, powerful, multi-layered story can affect you as audience, whether reader, viewer. And I love The Sixth Sense because it is disturbing, haunting. The whole big reveal is, growing up, a lot of people knew of the reveal before they ever watched the film. I was lucky at a young age. I watched this aged 4 or 5, and I remember it scaring the shit out of me. It really, really creeped me out. But even at such a young age, the omnipotence of the visual storytelling and the power of the thematics inlaid kind of conveyed, and I grew up with it, and as I grew up and acknowledged it, it just became stronger. And I haven't watched this film in about, let's say, 21 years, and coming across it, it's as powerful as it was, even at a very young, impressionable age. But the thing about that is this film is so enigmatic and so mysterious, and even the mythology subjugated around it, not just as M. Night Shyamalan, the filmmaker, but the connotations, the way it's executed, not just visually but narratively and metacontextually. At an impressionable age, I would recommend you show this to young children, because the ultimate themes at heart is beautiful, the spiritual aspects of it, not to be afraid of the other realm, not to be afraid of the supernatural forces, and about decency, and to take a back seat and to reflect and compose and ask these drifting, confused souls, what is it you want? I think this film is speaking upon so many subjects in the in and around era, certain topicalities, certain conscious messages and social connotations, whilst being a very good, almost psychological, supernatural thriller. Less of a horror, it's more of a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for me, it's something that, all I knew was that, it's the infamous I See Dead People. I didn't know anything else other than the short description that you gave me, which was as simple as a boy sees dead people and a man tries to help him through that. The twists and turns that come with that, and I think the fact that you don't have to see a lot of dead people in order to make this film really hit home, I think is really clever, because you don't need to be full of. I mean, there were a few moments where you see a child turn around and he's got the back of his head blown off or whatever. There doesn't have to be huge amounts of those gory moments, those moments of fear and death. You don't have to see a huge amount of that to understand what the film's about, and the relationship that this little boy needs to make with these people, and to show how beautifully you can see death through the eyes of this little boy, and how it's not something to fear, and actually it's very easy even as adults to fear death, whether it be your own death or a family member's death, and then to fear what you believe in after that, whether it be a spiritual realm or or just having spirits visit the home, if that's something that you believe in, or whatever. And actually one of the phrases he said is, when you feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up straight, and you feel that it's cold, and you feel that the tiny hairs on your arms go up. That for me is something that I experience in my own spirituality, my own beliefs. So to actually hear a child of such a young age to talk about something like that is incredibly powerful. And when he has a moment where he begins to help people, and he goes to the funeral of a small child and helps his father to see what's
ultimately what's a murder
happened. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing is you see, and they mostly are murders, aren't they? Because they are places where it wasn't an easy death. It was something that
and they are hanging on because they need something to be told.
They need justice, yeah.
And this little boy as a conduit for that, and the notion, what you just said is, we don't see that many ghosts, but the performance of Haley Joel Osment, just his reactions to the unseen, you put yourself in his shoes, and it really taps into that nature of ghosts and ghouls at a young age and the power of imagination. And not just that, but how imagination transcends into a pure reality. Even if it's ethereal, otherworldly, it's still reality for him. And though it's supernatural, you can't take that away from him. It is happening. And the whole psychological bent and angle of it I really liked as well, because the film is trying to convince you that this boy is psychologically disturbed, whereas at the same time, you're so fully aware that he isn't. He is a young boy with a gift.
You start to question, don't you, whether you're seeing from his point of view, whether that's real, or whether you're seeing it through his imagination.
We see the little boy through the eyes of Bruce Willis as well, who in summary is a ghost, and of whom needed this. This is what's really great about the layers of narrative. They need each other. And his story wasn't he needed to be redeemed for an action or such and sundry. He needed to save this child where he felt he failed the one that ended up killing him. And that is so powerful, strident,
absolutely,
and very felt. Visually, it's gorgeous. M. Night Shyamalan likes to hold still static shots. His camera moves are slow, languid. It's almost like a pebble's been dropped into a pond, and those slow ripples, and you get that sense of dread but also spiritual communion. It's a really powerful movie. It's beautifully told, beautifully performed, and it is notarized for being one of the best films of its generation and era, because it's wholly unique. And it stands out as something different from the rest. It isn't tapping into the usual horror tropes. And when it does, it is in relation to the story. The jump scares are in relation to what the young boy is, in essence, reacting to, rather than trying to get one over the audience. For me, The Sixth Sense is a 5-star masterpiece. It really shows the start of something great for M. Night Shyamalan, but also shows that he kind of started in his latter stages as a director, and I think you'll see this when we watch more of his films. He started getting more beholden to the M. Night Shyamalan name, much as we've spoken about Christopher Nolan. You become so notarized that you believe your own press, and this ego and this almost pretentiousness warps, and it kind of delineates something in your latter half films, in your self-seriousness and your self-importance to the world of cinema and in the stories you're telling. So for me, I think The Sixth Sense is a 5-star masterpiece. I don't know what your rating is of it.
Yeah, I'd give it 5 stars. I thought it was very good. I did like the twists and turns. I like the fact that, like I said, it doesn't have to continuously fall back on that kind of horror stereotypical jump scares. There were a few, but it lent well to the overall film, the overall story. But it wasn't too much, and that, you know, that everything was done in such a way that was just perfect. There was nothing that was like, oh, there's too much of this or too little of that. It was just, you know, probably one of the most perfect psychological thriller / horrors I've ever seen. Yeah, 5 stars.
5 stars for The Sixth Sense. Followed up will be Unbreakable, M. Night Shyamalan's follow-up to The Sixth Sense. So, Unbreakable, story please.
A security guard, having been the sole survivor of a high-fatality train crash, finds himself at the centre of a mysterious theory that explains his consistent physical good fortune. When news of his survival is made public, a man whose own body is excessively weak tracks him down in an attempt to explain his unique, unbreakable nature.
You're in the emergency room of the Philadelphia City Hospital. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Where were you sitting on the train?
Against the window.
In the passenger car?
Yes.
You're certain you were in the passenger car?
Yeah. Where are the other passengers?
Your train derailed. Took a curve too fast. A second train collided with yours after it derailed. The debris spread over 1 mile.
Why are you looking at me like that?
There are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. 1, because it seems you are the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, you don't have a scratch on you.
I know what's going through your mind right now. You're searching for meaning in all of this. Know one thing. 131 people died so you could finally understand the destiny for which you were born. Are you ready for the truth?
Now, Unbreakable is a superhero film. A superhero film quite unlike anything you have ever seen, and I think quite unlike anything that has ever been made. It is a very introspective, meta deconstruction of the nature and notion of heroism, superheroes, and also the impact of storytelling and myth and the realities and truth behind that, and also the parallels between good and evil and the distinctiveness, and about how good can be reinforced but how also good can be reinforced maliciously. I love it. I love Unbreakable. As a postmodern twist and as a whole complete swerve from what at that point was the slowly drippings of the modern superhero blockbuster. What worked for you for Unbreakable?
For me, it's very much about, you know, superheroes, as everybody knows. I say everybody, all 4 of you know.
6.
Huh? What?
We're in a different setting, we're in a different universe. I mean, we're in different clothes.
I thought you were going to say uniform. So, what was I saying?
What you don't like about superhero films and why you liked Unbreakable.
Yeah, so I don't like superhero films because they are usually very predictable. They're very predictable. They're very, you know, we see what's going to happen, you know, we see the origin from them, and then it's like they become this superhero and how they become the superhero. Then there's a villain, they fight the villain, and then the world is saved again, and there we are. So
you don't like the over colourful pop arty nature of a man can smash himself through a skyscraper and at the end of it just go,
no, it's just not realistic. And I know it's not meant to be realistic, but there comes a point of beyond the realm of possibility, and it just bothers me. It just really bugs me.
Unless it's got a human element like a lot of DC films you like, or even the Marvel ones.
Yeah.
Unless it has something else beyond the predictable, you know, physics-defying stuff. You need something else to ground you.
Yeah,
well, this
absolutely.
film kind of gets a handbook and goes, fuck off, I'm going to the end times where storytelling began, where heroes and heroism and what it means to be a protector started way before people started drawing in comic books.
It's
were
certainly
actually
not
chiseling into.
Yeah, it's not stereotypical. It's not predictable. It's something that is as simple as something that perhaps we have in everyday life. Some people do have a bit more intuition than other people. Some people do feel connected to the spiritual realm that they believe is perhaps a bit more power than other people have. There is that element of mythology comes into our everyday life, and that's what makes this film so realistic and so good all at the same time, because it takes in enough of that connection into real life and also this mythological realm, and it mixes it in too, but without making it so mythological that we've got to put these stones in the walls to make everything go bright and blue. Do you know what I mean? That's and in some ways, like in Jungle Cruise, that was fine. But then in other ways, it's just like, oh, please, it's just the same thing over and over.
It's Samuel L. Jackson is pretty much his character Elijah Price and becomes Mr. Glass. He basically, he spells it out for you. These mythologies start with truth somewhere. And an event needs to cause, it's cause and effect, and this is a spoiler, of course, all of it is a spoiler because it's a retrospective. He is the causality that creates a almost nexus event that brings to the fore what he's always assumed and always held and obsessed over a belief of existing in our time. All of these comic books, the art and all that, I am a historian of it, I appreciate it, but I'm actually into the intertextual contextualization. He's into the history of it. It's very clever. It's a postmodern twist on superhero films. Superhero films and superhero materials.
I think as well, in some ways, even though this film is like over 20 years old now, you're still looking at something that's almost futuristic in a weird kind of way, and it's odd to see it that way, because you just think, well, how is it futuristic when we're now looking back at it 20 odd years later? But it still is. It's still this kind of futuristic element, which I really like because it holds up. It holds up after
and because
all of that time.
It's rooted so firmly in reality. It's so recognisable, and what makes this film stronger than ever is when it does start progressing into the more superheroics of David Dunn's gleaned and amassed powers. M. Night Shyamalan could have easily gone, oh yeah, he's superpowered now. He's superpowered.
Yeah, and then he like connects and
or he smashes up a person to a pulp, or he tries to stop a train. Instead, it's like one of the most realistic engagements of combat ever.
He's just being a good guy.
He's being a good guy when he rescues the children from that sicko janitor, and just the uses of framing. He's holding it. It's not fast cut. We are bird's eye view above. We're witnessing the spectacle of a man of whom is stronger than your average man,
but in a way that's realistic. The fact that when he's pushing up his weight, he's still struggling.
It's a struggle.
You can still see the veins in his neck and his head that you think, oh my god, this poor guy's actually going to die. But it's still a struggle. Whereas when you see somebody like Superman, they're just like...
It's clever because it's making you question the validity, the psychology. Again, as an audience member, it makes you think, actually, is Elijah just seeding these ideas in their head?
But the power of positivity and the power of suggestion is often more powerful half the time than any mythological situation.
And not helped by his son, of whom at one point in the film picks up a gun to prove the point that his dad is superpowered. Oh, that scene is so intense, but it's so integral.
It's so emotional, because his son's trying to say, look Dad, you're bigger than what you are.
And this is a special
this.
thing for them. I'm recognising something in you, Dad, and the dad is recognising that the son's seeing something in him, because it is a film that established this is not the happiest of households. disintegrating marriage, and inevitable. It comes to the fore later in the story that he is estranged from his own son.
Yeah.
Why do you do this? Why do you keep him at arm's length? And it's kind of like, because I want to protect him, he says, in as many few words. And then this connection between them, this recognition, and then later in the movie where he's done the big fight, he's saved, he's become this embodiment of a modern day hero. Also that sequence where he's getting thrown into the walls and the indentations, it's more effective, that reality and that groundedness, than fucking Superman throwing Batman through a building.
It is a better depiction of a Man of Steel than Superman is for me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And coming from a near-death experience, which, you know, I love that his vulnerability is sparked. His kryptonite is sparked from a childhood trauma.
Yeah.
It's so clever. It is so specific and clever.
And the fact as well
and
that...
human.
Yeah, and the fact as well that he walked away from an almost... what should have been a fatal car crash. He walks away completely unharmed. But what I love the most about that thing is the fact that he's convinced himself all these years that the original lie he told, which was, you know, I've been hurt, I can't play football anymore, it's like he's forgotten that he's told that lie and he believes it. And I think for me that's...
he did it purely for his wife, so that they could have that love.
So much more powerful than... Yeah, look at me. I was completely unscathed.
Hey baby, I don't need to play football, I can pick up a fucking car.
Yeah,
it could have gone that
Yeah, exactly.
length.
But it's the fact that he's convinced himself from that one lie of, yes, I'm hurt and I can't do football
and
anymore.
It's muddied his memories, it's muddied his self-actualization, his self-reflection, because he is a drifter from the same job. Whether it's a better one, it's always him going from security. And then again, Elijah points this out to him. Why have you chosen security? What is it in security? It's the subconscious thing. Psychologically mapped out. This is so clever. It's intrinsic to character development, motivation, the intermateriality of it, the commentary, whether social, vital, or even critique upon modern media, comic books.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the sequence where him and his son share the most... It makes me want to cry just like, you know, talking about it, because it's this life-affirming and forever bond that's sealed. He pushes the paper, which is basically recognising that he's done, and he's basically said... He said to him, it's an apology as well as you were right. And the kid gets so ecstatic and he's about to burst and he's like, and they're both crying. He's like, you need, if we need this to go forward, we've
got to keep it quiet.
It's us, it's our thing. And this is going to unify us until the day you die or I die. It's not spoken. It's not outrightly expositionally splurted.
No.
It is told subtly by good filmmaking, great performances, and then the great big twist and reveal that the person who has brought this all to the fore, a supposed friend, Elijah. Like, did you expect that?
I wouldn't say... There had to be something.
Yeah.
There had to be something, because otherwise this character is almost entirely pointless. Yes, he founded this superhero, but there had to be something, some reason for him to be such an integral part of the film. Not sure I was expecting the full-on terrorism, but there had to be something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So no, not really.
It's really interesting that we look at the character of Samuel L. Jackson, an expert in his field, in comics, mythology and history, and you believe him from the go. You don't question his psychology himself. You actually are behind him because it's coming from a good place that is so misguided. And it's heartbreaking when he says, I actually have overall done this, David, so I know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not the good guy. You're the guy who's meant to protect me. And you had a really good hypothesis that there's also something very, very specific behind. He wanted a own personal...
Like a security guard for himself.
The vulnerable that represents... Whilst at the same time he says, you made me realise who I am. I am the bad guy.
Yeah.
And you see that he has meticulously caused a lot of big events, big genocide, terrorist catastrophes just to get David Dunn this one, and whether it's David Dunn or someone else, he was just hoping
looking for somebody
to lure
that
it
he
out.
thought that was going to exist.
And it's about self-actualization again. You made me realise who I am. All of this wasn't in vain. This is my purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of people criticise the ending where it cuts to black and text. I think it leaves you wounded, winded, and the performance from Bruce Willis it's been such a build-up, this relationship between them two. It's this point where it's like, I'm acknowledging you're my friend, and he's like, this is the point where we shake hands and mutual ability, we will agree not to disagree anymore. We're on the same plane, and then the rug is pulled underneath him.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis is so good in this. Bruce Willis, with a good director like M. Night Shyamalan, is a sensational actor. He isn't the meathead machismo type.
No.
He is a very strong actor, and when he starts looking down and he's crying, he's like, Elijah, what have you done? Not just in this situation related to him, but in general.
Yeah, yeah.
What have you done? And it poses a larger question. What have you done, and what will you do? Because he could have easily walked away from that. You've got what you've wanted, but he did report him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what have you done, and what are you going to do? It's so clever. One of the best superhero films ever made. And it is an origin story. That first, not even chapter, almost a prologue.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And 5 stars.
5 stars.
I tried to keep a secret from Laura, which she already knew. I was like, in the last video before we lost it, I was like, oh, it's a film that really feels like it should stand on its own. And Laura's like, yeah. And I'm like,
I think it should stand alone, in all fairness, because I haven't seen the anything after that. I'd completely forgotten when you asked me that it was connected. It was interconnected, but
was it by getting the trailer up that it came up with Split and Glass as recommendations?
No.
When did it come back in your head? Like, oh shit, you're a bit like David Dunn. You're like, oh yeah, shit, this is part of the series.
Oh yeah, I don't know, but there was just something that I just suddenly went, there's 3 of these. Do you know what I mean? It was like, because the thing is, it was such a long time ago that whatever, I can't remember how it happened, but there was a conversation. I'm not even 100% sure it was Mum now that I'm thinking about it.
I don't think it is, because when you asked her about Unbreakable, she's like, what's that? I've never heard of it.
She has heard of it. She does know, because she's watched the
other...
other...
Well, she probably watched Glass, which was the most recent, and then was like...
But I think she knows.
There's other 2 films.
Yeah.
It's like, have you watched it, Mum? And she's probably like, no.
But somebody somewhere has said to me, when the latest one came out, when Glass came out, it was like, oh, should we go and see that? I don't know who it was. And it's like, well, have you seen Split and Unbreakable? It's like, no.
And what are they?
And then it's like, well, then there's not really much point in seeing it. You're not going to be able to appreciate it. And I'm like, oh, okay,
no, that's
whatever.
True. That's
cool.
true. Not for Split. I mean, at the end, the big twist, you know, M. Night Shyamalan is notorious for his big twists. Cleverly enough, his biggest twist wasn't anything to do with narrative, but to do with the universe it was set in. But I remember, I hadn't watched Unbreakable, but I still knew. I was like, I wasn't like, oh, Sixth Sense character. I was like, he's from Unbreakable. David Dunn pieced it together. And then when I watched Unbreakable, I feel you do need to watch Unbreakable, but if you want to watch Split as just a isolated thing, you can.
Yeah.
It is a standalone film. The actual sequel to Unbreakable is Glass.
Well, but that's the thing, though. To have gone to see Glass, I would have been like...
You don't have any connection, you have no awareness, and then all of a sudden you go, why is James McAvoy's weird character from Split in here?
But yeah, that's the thing. So whoever it was, they said to me, and I don't know what it was, but something just suddenly went ding, and I was just like, oh yeah, they're all interconnected.
So yeah.
I think it was the fact that I kept hearing the name Glass, and I'm like, Glass.
There's a film called Glass with Bruce Willis and Samuel
L.
Jackson.
Like, of course, they're all connected.
Yeah.
And then I'm in Zach's face.
I was gutted. I really wanted her to go into Split and be surprised that David Dunn was at the end of it.
You looked at me as if I was wrong, as if like, oh, you've been listening to other people again.
Oh, I could have played it like that and fucked up your head even more.
You were so gutted though. I was like, well, I do actually have a brain in my own right.
No, I don't. It wasn't a question of you being brainy. I just thought, no, just going off of you saying it should have been standalone. She doesn't know yet.
No, I do know. I forgot in that moment.
Now, the next one will be Signs, and we haven't watched that yet. So, as soon as we turn off the camera for this segment, we're going to be watching Signs. But
I need a wee first.
yeah, I need a wee, poo, I need to get another drink, I need to get changed, and then we can settle down for Signs. M. Night Shyamalan's, again, inverted postmodern take on an alien invasion film. It's amazing. I really hope you like it. Go for a wee.